So hello all, if you're in, welcome to the orchestration class. We're going to be talking about several different things this morning. So hopefully you guys are strapped and ready to learn. I also have an orchestral example or a few orchestral examples that I'm working on that I'd like to show you. So anyway, we're just waiting for some more students to show up. All right, welcome to the orchestration class again. So let's see what we got. So I want to actually go over some different things with you this morning regarding the size of orchestras, because that's actually pretty important. When you go to score for an orchestra, that would be, or to arrange something for an orchestra, that would be something that you have to take into consideration when you're doing it. The size can vary from 20 to 75. So it could be pretty big range. The chamber orchestra instrumentation also varies quite a bit. So let's see about that. So chamber orchestra usually has a smaller amount of instruments, being a chamber ensemble itself. And so we have a lot of the instruments that you would see in the regular orchestra. Some of them are actually taken out of the chamber orchestra because chamber orchestras are usually actually on the smaller side, and they want more intimate settings when it comes to concerts and playing and things like that. Chamber orchestra has four main sections. They are the brass, the woodwinds, the percussion, and the strings. So we still have those four main sections. But unlike the other ones, bigger orchestras, you can have the classic 10 violin ones, 8 violin twos. You can have 6 violas, 4 cellos, and 2 basses, or 4 basses, where you can actually do divisi parts, or divide the string parts, or divide the trumpet parts, or divide any of those parts up into parts that will give your chords of the orchestra a fuller sound, more expressive sound. But in the chamber orchestra, they tend to lack a little bit of that doubling. They tend to have a little less on the side of, okay, we, instead of 10 violin ones, we have maybe 6. And instead of 8 violin twos, we have maybe 4, instead of 4 violas, we have 2, that kind of thing. They kind of skim it down a little bit. So yeah. In chamber orchestras, there may also be a piano. Woodwinds are also there. Instruments such as bassoons, oboes, and clarinets, they're always there. Flutes and piccolos, always there. Brass are the horns, and the trumpets and trombones and French horns. Now, what is odd, what I find interesting, is when I go into, say I go into finale up here, and I go, I'm going to actually share a screen with you real quick. If I go up here, and I share that with you. So we're in the document setup wizard in Finale. So I'm gonna show you this. It's kind of striking that Finale does this, but we'll see how this works. All right, let's work on this. So what you'll see here is actually, I'm gonna actually backtrack. Sorry about that. Let's go to templates in Finale. I'm gonna pull up my Finale window. I'm gonna go launch window, go to templates, go to orchestral templates, and I'm gonna go chamber orchestra. So that's the one that we want. And it's gonna ask me to do a title. I'm just gonna name it something weird and then click finish. So now that it has this, now you could see if I click scroll view here, you could see it has the flutes 1 and 2, oboe 1 and 2, clarinet 1 and 2, bassoons, the horns, the trumpets, everything like that, except it has no low brass. So this is assuming that, you know, this particular chamber orchestra would have no low brass, or that the low brass, the trombones, would be optional. Now, typically in chamber orchestras, they may have a couple of trombones, but they may not have things such as tubas or euphoniums or that kind of thing. It all depends on what they've got. And there may also be a piano in there. There's usually 1 or 2 pitched percussion instruments in there. And then the strings is your last follow through. So if you wanted, you know, if the scorer wanted to, they could add, let's say they could add a little bit of lower brass. They could add these lower brass instruments like this. Go down. So you wouldn't have euphonium and tuba, but you could have this, and you could have this. So you could have trombone parts 1 and 2, and then a third is bass trombone. So you could have those 3 parts there, and you just have to move those down. And here we go. Here's trombone. And the regular trombone is usually tenor trombone, just to make a clarification. Bass trombone is usually quite a bit lower. So let's see. Grab it. So now we have that added in there. So now that that's added in there, it should have all of the instruments added in there now. So you can actually go back to the whole page view, which I'm going to do, and it will show you what instruments you have. And don't worry, I'm going to correct this later. If it goes off the page, I can always make arrangements or fixes to the page. But this is the typical chamber orchestra size and make. And then we have the full. So we have this full orchestra here. So let's do that. And instead of a 8.5 by 11, let's do that. 11 by 17. So, and this orchestra is quite a bit bigger. There's quite a bit more of a selection of woodwinds. There's quite a bit more of a selection of brass. There's tuba in this one and low brass. So you have your trombones and your tubas, and then you have your timpani. You also have unpitched percussion. Then you have your harp. You have your piano, and then you have your strings, and that's usually a full 10-8, 6-4 kind of deal. And we're just going to go like that so I could show you what it all looks like. So we have scroll view. So here's what it all boils down to. And you also have piccolo up at the top. So you have all of this extra woodwind activity that you can use. So you have all these strings. You have these, harp and piano. You have a bigger percussion section. You have trumpet, trombones, and then you also have the tubas. But then you also have much bigger woodwind section. You have the piccolos, the flutes, the oboes, the English horn. English horn's added. Clarinet E flat is often added. Contrabassoon is also added, but it's used in somewhat rare cases, but I do see it used in scores. So that's part of the arrangement there. So you got to look out for those things. Okay. And the size, if I were to do a look at the size of this, let's go over here. If I were to look at the size of this, we can just go up here. All right. So these instrumentations for the orchestra have actually combined over the years. So it's actually gone up quite a bit. Now these can have, you can have quite a bit wide varying range of instruments in the orchestra, which is what this class partly goes into. 20th and 21st century really broadened out the instrumentation of the orchestra so that more stuff could be added in. So there have been changes to the orchestra over time. So for instance, here's one. Here's what they used to look like in the classical era. You used to have all of these grouped up together, nice and neat, very short, sweet, and to the point. There wasn't a lot of expanded instrumentation up here. You just had your standard flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, horns, trumpet, timpani, violin, viola, cello, and piano, or cello and bass rather. So you had all of this, but then around about after Beethoven's time, you had all of these. And I think Sibelius does a good job of branching these out. Then you have these. You have more expanded instrumentation. Now you've got higher woodwinds. You've got English horn, that's the cor anglius there, and then the E flat clarinet's a little bitty clarinet. And then the B flat clarinet there, and then the bass clarinet is like this. So you've got quite a bit of variance on those. Your bassoons, your contrabassoons, and then your horns. Wagner tuba, that's different. That came around in the late 18th, 19th century there. And then trumpet, trombone, there you go, bass trombone, tuba, so there's your full brass. Timpani, percussion, so pitch percussion, non-pitch percussion, then some more pitch percussion, tubular bells, glockenspiel, xylophone, and then we have celesta, which is right next to piano because it's a two staff. Both of these are two staff instruments. Two harps. Now for this arrangement, I really think they would only have room for one harp. I think this is kind of overdoing it for the one. For two harps, but you can put two harps in there if your repertoire calls for it. And then moving forward, what we have is we have the concert orchestra, which is up here. So this one, you don't have your piccolo, but you can actually double or cue the flute in there. And you can actually put that in there. Like say if you wanted to, let's say if we wanted to do some sort of a melody here, let's go, no input. Okay, so let's say we have this little melody here, and then what you want to do is you want to, I'm going to share screen so that everybody can see. Let's do that. Share. So now we're on this. So let's say you have this melody here, you can actually do a cue. So let's do a cue. Let's see if we can do layering. So it would have to do with layering. And then you'd go in, you'd have to go in here and find the cue symbols for these things, but you'd actually make, let's say you made how to cue. Okay, so what you would do is you would actually go to small notes. You'd actually go to notations and symbols in here, and you could actually go and that could be your cue, while the lower, let's say you go type, go normal, say you have a little cue in there, and then you want to go layer it. And you want to layer these. So let's go to layer 2 down here. And we could put our flute part, our actual flute 1, down here. See, so this could be your piccolo cue. And what you would just write for text would be just be like this. Be like this. You'd be like pick, or just put cue pick, cue piccolo. So that's kind of how you would do that, cue piccolo. So you would actually find, not a time code, but you would actually find like this. You'd actually say two. So you want to go two piccolo, two, well, piccolo is the one. So here we go. So there we go. There's our flute. How do we get? So you'd actually go, here's your cue, and it would actually do this. So let's go back to layer 1 and then go back to text. And let's see if it'll let me do it there. So let's go. You're supposed to be able to do it, but I'm having issues with putting it on. But let's say I'm just going to put in here, in this one, I'm just going to say, putting on the score, you're going to put Q pick, PICC. So that's the one thing that you're going to put in there is Q piccolo. So if I were to take a screenshot of this, let's say we were going to take a screenshot of this little thing right here, or better yet, get a better one. Then put it in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in this thing. So what I'm going to do is, hold on just a minute. Okay, so here we go. This is how it would look. So you want Q pick. Let's say we want to take Q and then pick. We want to move it right next to there so that it's right on top. So let's do that real quick. Let's show you that. So if you could see that, look ahead. Oops. There you go, Q pick. So that's how we would do that. It'd probably be smaller because it's on the score, but we would actually cue the piccolo like that. And it would actually be more like in between, or maybe even lower. It could be even lower. But it would be somewhere in there that you would cue the piccolo, and it would actually be up top, and it'd be in the smaller note heads. So that's how you write the cues for set instruments. Okay, there we go. Any questions? Let's go to note input notations. We don't want this one. So let's say we want smaller. So we have our little thing there too. So it could be in this. So what you want to do is you want to go same thing over that. You want to go Q. Q. Oops. You want it over this note. Oop. Do it again. Q. Violin 1. See, so you can take that. You could take those and just say Q wherever, and that's good for orchestra, and that's actually also good for band. When some bands don't have certain parts, so there'll be cues written in. So that's a thing to watch out for when you're orchestrating as well, is when you have different places, different people, different ensembles that you're orchestrating for, it's important to know, okay, how can I fit this arrangement that I've written into this orchestra or this band? Can I write some cue parts that'll fit in both, let's say, strings and oboe or strings and flute? And there are some differences between those that we see. And that is because higher strings, you're going to want to match with higher woodwinds, because like flutes or clarinets, because they cut through less, but they're piercing in their higher ranges. They're more noticeable in their higher ranges. So you want to use those. Whereas in lower ranges of the strings, you might want to cue some low brass or some medium brass or something, just to give it a little bit more color. That's a little tidbit of information there. So, but always, get the scoop on what orchestra or band or ensemble you're writing for, or arranging for, or orchestrating for, and see what they're doing, and see what the instrumentation is. And if you have to write cues, this is how to do it. And you just write, okay, right on it, or right before the cue starts, you write cue and then the instrument. And then that's how that happens. So that is it for cueing. And I can go ahead and come off screen. Okay, we're good there. Okay, and what else we are going to go over today is we're going to go over some different stuff that I've been writing to show you how I orchestrate and maybe inspire you just a bit. So let's do this. All right, so let's go ahead and close. All right, so I have this. So this piece, let me put it on the share screen. And let's take this apart. And share screen. And let's see what we got. So I have this concert score here. And I am sharing sound, so if you can hear it, good. If you can't, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure that out. But here we go. Let me play back some of this window. Okay, so that's a little bit. So you may hear some bad notes in there. So if you ever come across this, let's go ahead and fix those. And here's how you do it. Let's try playing it once more. Okay, let's get rid of that. Play it once more. So that's all we have so far. So that's with choir and with orchestra going on. And so you could see I have it starting in the strings first of all. And so what I have is this. Let's do view. View, view, view. So we have these guys, the strings starting first. And how I scored the chord for this. So I basically go, okay, do I want a low or a high harmony for this one? And which instruments do I want to start? Sometimes I'll start with the second violin, sometimes I'll start with the first. But usually if I want the whole section to be playing, I'll start with this one. So let's put that front there, and then I'll do this one. And I'll go through the chords. So what notes are in this chord? It's a G minor chord, right? So I would actually 1, 2, 3. So here we're D, B flat. This is a G, and this would be D, and this would be G. So I want to go G, D, G, B flat, D. So I want to actually have reinforcements in some of the other string parts in order to play, in order to have these things in place. And usually the G and the D are the ones that are doubled. Usually you'll have that. And then going to the next measure, you have C, and I kept the D in here, but it's a non-chord tone or an add two. G, so C, D, G, C, D, G, C, E. So if we were to take this D out, it'd be C, E, G all across the board. So it's a C, E, G chord with an added D in there. But I could, like over here, I take this, somewhere in here, I actually move it up. I go like this. G, D, G, B flat, G, D. Reinforcements. Then I go up to E. Do you see that? And then, so C, E, G, C, E. There you go. Now you've got all of the notes of the C chord in there. So I score those, and let's say, you know, you wanted to split. Let's say if there was a passage that you wanted to split in the piano. Let's say if you wanted this big chord. Now this is kind of how to score. Oh, so let's see if you wanted to do that much. So if we wanted to take this, let's say if I wanted to take that chord, right, and put it in, let's split these mid to high, this mid to high right hand part up first. Let's, if I wanted to split this up, I could put it in here. I could just take this, and based on the range, look at the notes that are in there, look at where they are on the staff. This would be more of an oboe. This would be more second oboe. This would be more, you know, clarinet, flute, flute. So what we can do is we can take all of this and we can go top down. And what I can try to do, if it'll let me do it, let's see. Go like, yeah, this measure 52. That's what we want. We're going to paste that chord right there. And then what you can do is you can go and explode this chord or distribute it. How many staves do we need? One, count the notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need 5 staves. And we don't need them at the bottom of the score. We just need them in the flute part starting. So we have all this. So here we go. That's how it looks in range. So that's how this would look. If you were to keep this in range here, that's how you would actually put it. And you can actually do this. I actually do this a lot. I'll put some stuff in the piano and then I'll arrange to double it based upon the range where on the piano it falls. I'll choose the instrument based on that fact. So let's do And then let's do our bottom. Let's do our bottom one. Let's add to this. I'm going to add a lower G just to say I did. So let's say if I went layer 2 and I wanted to add pedal G, low G to this. So you're like, what? How am I going to do this? So you just go up here. You go stay on 52, and this is why scroll view in Finale is so beneficial, because it has the big measure numbers right here, so you don't have to guess. So we have 3 notes, so we're going to want 3 stabs, starting with this one. And you pick your stab that you want to start with first, and then you paste it there. And then you go to view, actually, no, you go to utilities rather, and you explode or distribute the music, and you do this. Existing stabs starting with, what are we starting with? We're starting with bass clarinet. So there you go. Or let's say if I didn't want to start with that one, but I wanted to start with, since they're bassoon 1 and 2 here, I could start with bassoons there and split. Split into, is that 2 or 3? Ah, so now you have your bassoon, and you could always edit these later. You could always go back, and let's say you needed to repitch something. You can always go back and go up here to the repitch tool and go boom. Let's make sure you're in layer 1. You can always go back and repitch that. Okay, so you can always go back and repitch it, or you can repitch it down here if you want a really low sound. It depends on what kind of color you would like, and the beauty of orchestration is color. You're meshing all the different orchestral instruments into specific colors, and it's like your canvas. So you actually, if we were to go up to '49, so it says we're on 32 now, so I'm gonna go to 48 or 49, enter. So we're gonna play that 52 coming up. Okay, so that's what it sounds like with the piano, with the color. You could also grab this So see, this would be good for, also this would be good for cello and bass. So you just put it there. And then you would put it, go up here, and utilities, and you just go distribute, and you just go starting with cello and click OK. So there you go. Or if you wanted to, you could undo. You could, since there's a D, you could start it with this viola part here. You could start it with here and go the same way. Utilities, explode, starting with viola. Okay. It just depends on what range, what richness you're wanting, and you could always revamp what you're doing there. So 51, let's go like that and play. So it's a little high. So let's try, and we could even transpose this a little bit. We can actually go, this is the beauty of doing all this. You can actually go and go back to utilities and go transpose, go octave, go down, boom. Then let's see about this. Utilities, transpose, octave down, boom. And then this could be, you know, you could take this note out and put it here, because this is actually, I think this is a low D if I'm not mistaken. So you could put this there. So let's play it again. Yep, so there's many different ways you can brighten it up and darken the texture. Next time we do this, we will be going over the different ranges and the different characteristics of each range. So stay tuned for that class. I have another one coming up at 4 today, and then hopefully we have another one coming up next Tuesday at around this time. So I will see you then. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the resources or in the comments, and I'll see you in the next session.